I got to ask you something that I can't believe I'm going to put all these issues together, but you brought up the church. You've talked about your time in the Navy. I don't know if you know where I'm going on this, but the new Pope's brother says that he served with you in the Navy.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't, I mean, like, let me, what do you know about, what do you expect out of this new Pope and how, what was that like? I mean, to me, the thing that's so weird about an American Pope is like these clips of watching him at a baseball game. Like I've never felt connected to a pope in the way that Leo does now, because you like there's always this sense of distance between the average congregant and the pope. And now I'm like seeing these clips about his brother and his this girl who went to a dance with him in junior high. And now here's my connection to him. I didn't realize Steve Bannon served in the Navy with Leo's brother.
Well, first of all, the reason it came up on Piers Morgan 10 days before the conclave, I said, Piers asked me, and I said, look, the dark horse, and the guy basically is going to get it is a guy named Cardinal Prevost in the United States. And Piers goes, what are you talking about? And I said twofold. Number one, he's perfect casting for them. He is the direct lineage of Bergoglio. He really is more almost Latin American than American. He spent most of his adult life, his formation with the Augustinians in Peru for many, many decades. And his thoughts of the church, kind of the radical nature of the church is, although he's got a very different way he delivers it, very calm, very organized, not as arrogant as the Jesuit Bergoglio, because the Augustinians are a very humble order. But he's directly in the same lineage of where they want to take the church. More importantly, as the Wall Street Journal reported, and this is why the reason I was able to call it 10 days beforehand, I did an incredible amount of investigative work on my own to
Really?
find out what was going on, because I knew Parolin couldn't get it because of the controversy over the secret Chinese deal. And I was told the church's finances are so bad, and the Wall Street Journal showed this. The deficits are up by 5x. They got a $2 billion pension problem. And that's just the Vatican. And don't talk about the church overall. And the reason is the traditional part of the church, the pre-Vatican II, the one that's growing, the Latin Mass, the young priests, vocations growing. That church is essentially cut. And a lot of the donors cut off the Vatican in the last couple of years of Bergoglio's reign. And I think funding's down 50%. They need American money. And that's why I said, hey, Prevost, they need an American that the American donors can feel kind of like you, just getting teary-eyed. You're as hard as tough as I know, and you're tearing up talking about he's a White Sox fan and he's going on tea dances. And so it worked. What they've got, they needed an American they can rub up. But the Cardinals the other day they said, hey, we don't really know the guy, right? He's one of them said he's the least American of us. Now, you got to separate out his personality, his gentleness, because I think that's one of the reasons the Curia picked him. The other brother gave an interview and said, hey, a couple days before the conclave met, they were talking about, hey, what name should I potentially pick? Should it be, I want to think about Leo, but there's 13th. Is that going to be a jinx? This thing was baked by the Curia. This was rigged greater than the 2020 election against President Trump. Now we're just going to have to wait and see. And yes, Petty Officer Prevost, I think, was a fire control technician on the USS Paul Loe Foster, DD 964, and I'm pretty sure I did two extended Westpacks in my 3.5-4 years on the ship, and I believe he was on the second. I think he was on the second one in the North Arabian Sea. But we are going to make contact, and so the odds of that are 5 billion to 1. But yes, young Ensign Lieutenant J.G. Bannon served with Petty Officer Prevost on the USS Paul Loe Foster. In fact, he's the head of our alumni association right now, puts together the annual get-togethers.
So, oh my gosh, I didn't. So you're still like on an email chain with the guy, or whatever.
No, my team. As soon as I saw that on Piers, a bunch of guys in the ship called me, and I immediately kind of recognized him. And he used to. I'm pretty sure he worked for one of the best. A former enlisted man became an officer named Dick Goldsworthy. One of the weapons officers, and I think Prevost was a fire control technician. No, I do remember him. I remember a guy, Petty Officer Prevost, and it looks like a younger version could be it, but we're already kind of trying to make contact. I'd love to have him on the war room. It's actually going to make it harder for me to continue to attack his brother. And some of the people around me says, hey, you're not going soft on us. I said, listen, man, you got to understand, the guy's a shipmate.
I know.
It's a different, as you know, it's a different deal. So but the odds of that have to be 5 billion to 1. The one guy that called it beforehand, and quite frankly, one of the leaders of the more traditional kind of anti-Bergoglio. I mean, look, I got a monastery at auction to build up kind of an a school of the Judeo-Christian West and a gladiator school, but also to be a counter to what was happening in the Vatican and Bergoglio. That's where the state came back and illegally took it away from us. Now they've admitted it's illegal, and they're going to give us the thing back. So my time in Rome has been quite colorful.
Wow. The funny thing is, it pays to stay in touch with folks. You never know who's going to be the Pope one day.
Well, no. What it hopes, I think it says, I tell people, always treat folks, nicely. You never know when a guy's going to pop up on a show and said, hey, he's the, I'm the Pope's brother. I knew this guy when he was back. He was 21, 22 years old. I'm very different than I was a little more maybe cocky. I was a little cocky back then.
That's got to be.
Well, now, as you know, surface warfare officers, this Paula Foster was the ASW ship of the year in the entire Pacific Fleet in 1978. It was really the first of its kind of the Spruance class, because the Spruance had problems in the yards in Pascagoula. They were the Atlantic Fleet. We were the Pacific, the Paula Foster. We were really the first ship of the class. And back in those days, in the mid to late 1970s, we were like every insert would come on, Admiral Buckley would come on. And we had every tough mission because they were trying to stress test. Because remember, they had followed the Royal Navy. These were gas turbine ships. We were kind of off the boilers for the first time, and it was a radical design for the Navy. It was a radical engineering makeup, a kind of a radical weapons package. Everything about it was cutting edge. The wardroom was selected. It was either brigade commanders at the academy or brigade commanders like University of Mississippi, Notre Dame, Ohio State, all the big ROTC programs. Plus, I was number one in my class at Surface Warfare Officer School, I think, and OCS. So they were picking even the 90-day wonders. You got the top of it. It was extraordinary. I think we had 4 or 5 admirals come out of that wardroom. Dang. It was extraordinary. And the crew, guys like Prevost, these were all handpicked. Because the ship was so kind of experimental, and it paid off. We were ASW, Anti-Submarine Warfare Ship of the Year, I think in 1978 for the entire Pacific Fleet, which, as you know, Sean, is a thing that people just really, and we were in Destroyer Squadron 23. We were in Arleigh Burke's famous The Little Beavers, 23. So this was a ship that was kind of extraordinary, very well known at its time.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.